Going tomorrow.
Oh, that boy.
So what's the week? Whether I need it or not.
You're live, Mike.
Thanks. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Finance, the Town of Somers, today on May 27th, 2025. Present are Paul Hart, Bruce Devlin, Kathy Devlin, Joe Talisano, Mike Parker, and our two financial experts, Brian Wissinger and Mike Marinaccio. Tim Keeney is the audience tonight, I guess.
One hand clap.
I guess with the absence of the Board of Ed, there is no update. Tim, it's all yours.
Got the comments? I thought Sam was going to be here this evening, which is why I wore a sport coat. I'll talk to him about that. Actually, I had a meeting with him earlier in the day, the group that meets at the library for the drug abuse in the high school system. It's a group of, Brian's on the group. What is it, about 11, 12 people?
Sounds great. Yeah.
It's an excellent group. Anyways, Sam and I are both on. Let's see. Things I wanted to mention include at this next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is on June 5th, a week from this Thursday, we're going to take up the possible purchase of the Somersville School, or the Speech Academy. This is a building that actually was constructed in 1935. My grandfather, Leland Keeney, actually chaired the building committee. The amazing thing is that this school is in great shape. The building, all three floors, I would say it's in the same shape it was in 70 years ago when I went to elementary school there. I used to walk home for lunch. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, we're thinking about, of course, we've made an offer to purchase the school from the Speech Academy, which has run, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe. Yeah. Todd Rowland and I got a tour probably 3 months ago, very extensive tour, top to bottom. And I asked the operations director, who was giving us the tour, and she showed us everything. I said, by the way, how many students do you have here? She said, two. So we thought immediately, there's an opportunity to maybe purchase it if they're interested. And they are very interested, willing buyers, sellers. So with regards to its potential use, which it's 22,000 square feet, big facility. Purchase price is somewhere around $365,000. We think over the next 10 years it might need as much as $700,000 of improvements, which would include an elevator so that we could utilize all three floors with the ADA requirements. And the parking lot needs to be resurfaced. Those are the big things. Might be some air quality issues involved as well, but not a total HVAC system, I can assure you. The potential uses of the building would be for the school has a transition program where students that are challenged, they're graduating, that need to continue to have care after they graduate. They've got another 3 or 4 years where they can get that care provided. The state has set up a program, and I think that the cost per student has been somewhere between $30,000 and $35,000 a year. This would allow, and we've been shipping our students out to Ellington and other towns surrounding us. This would allow us to run the program out of the school, which would be awesome. So there'd be a cost savings there. Human Services would also probably want to use part of it. recreation. The school has a gym that's still very usable. It's got a basketball court. It's got a stage. Veterans Affairs is interested in using space there. And the teen center is as well. They sort of overrun the library facilities, and they need additional space. This would be ideal. I was asked today questions about what about transportation. I said we can figure that out later. Not a problem. That's the first thing I want to mention. The second thing is also at the same Board of Selectmen meeting next Thursday on the 5th of June. We're going to take up who the personnel will be, membership of the building committee for the schools, the HVAC building committee. As you probably heard, I think we mentioned this one in a prior meeting, that the prior committee was deemed to be ineffective as far as the town attorney was concerned because it wasn't formed properly. We didn't comply with the town charter. So therefore, we terminated the membership, and we reconfigured it, and he came up with a resolution which the Board of Selectmen passed, which allows us to appoint the membership, and we plan on appointing the same 7 members that were previously on it. And the one change may be the chairman of the Board of Ed. She herself may want to be on the building committee herself, rather than appoint one of her members. So that's a possibility. I tried to call her today and wasn't able to reach her, but I think that she'll probably want to be on it. So let's see. The third item I want to mention is 2 weeks ago I had a meeting with Todd Rowan and I went into Hartford. We went through our lobbyists there who set us up with a meeting with Governor's Chief of Staff, Matt Brockman, his name is, to talk about the Bond Commission is going to be meeting next, I think, in July. And we've talked to them several times in the past about getting on the agenda for the Bond Commission and how Summers has actually never been on the agenda for the Bond Commission in the past, ever. And this is an opportunity for us to, we're requesting $5 million, which will go towards the project that Wind Development has come up with. They're looking for a town contribution. Mike has been intimately involved with this. And it was I think Mike would have been at the meeting, but I think he was on vacation at the time. We let you go to Martha's Vineyard occasionally. But it was a really good meeting. I mean, Matt Brockman is a very impressive fellow, the Chief of Staff. Seems to have a great relationship with the governor. He was impressed with our story, which is, where the project came from, how it got developed. And the fact of the matter is it's zoned for an apartment complex, by the way, so there's no zoning questions, even though, of course, we know there'll be some people dissatisfied with an apartment complex versus an open space for their dog walk. They can still use the south side of the property for that. So, and the fourth thing I just want to mention was the special appropriation that Brian's going to cover later, where we want the amount increased to 0.2% of the total budget, which would take it from what's currently $20,000, which was passed by that level was set back in 1990. If you just apply the inflation to that $20,000, it would be $75,000 today. So we're thinking that maybe that $20,000 ought to be raised, and we came up with a 0.2%. Which would allow us to keep current with rates of inflation and things like that, and keep us in relative relation to the town budget. So you'll be hearing more about that later, and those are the 4 things I want to mention tonight.
What would the use of Kibbe Fuller be after we move some of the folks down to?
Yeah, good question. I think we still have use for it. And that's given us a pretty good idea of what it would cost us to run the Summersville school. Mm-hmm. And it's not it's not too bad. I mean, as far as expenses are concerned. Todd's got an idea as to where the money would come from, and would probably, of course, have to go through SIP and all of that as well. And we're going to try to raise, and once we purchase the school, we're going to try to raise funds to provide furnishings, improvements, whatever we need the money for. And I think the fact that we have this transition program as part of the program, part of one of the programs that will be sponsored by the school, I think it would help us immensely being able to raise money towards the school improvements.
Any other questions for Tim?
Yeah, so I know this has to go through the process of the selectmen and CIP and then the Board of Finance, but from my vantage point, you have an endowment with Hillsdale. We're pretty much, we have just our reserves left. So the capital expenditures to purchase this, to upgrade it, to operate it, it would be wonderful, since you wrote the agreement and you know the relationship, if they can contribute some of that. And what, from my perspective, is they would not only buy the building if the endowment allows that, but do the upgrades and maybe a year of operating, so we can get an understanding of what we've walked into. It's hard for us in town to gauge that sometimes, and that would be a great enhancement to getting this project to move forward.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, the building is in such good shape as we can walk in there tomorrow and start to use it. I mean, that's the condition it's in. It's been really well maintained. As far as Hillsdale goes, from day one, I've thought of that, and we just have to figure out how to handle that and be as diplomatic as possible. And I think that's a possibility. And I've talked to Todd about that. And our thinking was that it probably wasn't a good idea to have Hillsdale contribute towards the purchase, but to have them contribute towards the upgrades that are needed. So they couldn't say that, hey, that's the school that we bought. Yeah. It doesn't sound like a problem, but it could be difficult down the road. So we're definitely thinking about where Hillsdale would fit in, and I've met the new director, Alan Crippen. His name is Crippe, and he wears a collar, by the way. Very, very religious. And, I'm not used to that, but keeps me on my toes when I'm talking to him. He was very active in the fishing derby. He and his wife both. And so we're going to be pursuing that for sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have just a question or two. I think first, with regard to increasing the amount necessary for town meeting, I think that's very wise. I think everybody on the Board of Finance would agree with that approach. Good idea. I know there are a number of projects that you've talked about, both with respect to this building in town, the old school, and also the low-income housing project. So I know you're working on a number of things, but I would respectfully request that you make every effort to get this building committee, and I know you just said you were going to do it, but I would respectfully request that you make every effort to get that committee established. We've had 2 votes in town where the townspeople have authorized funds to do this project at the elementary school for the HVAC. So I think the consensus in the town is directing us to move forward with that project. And I don't mean to get out of my lane, but I think it would be very good if you, in addition maybe to Ms. Kirkpatrick, appointing her to the committee, if you might appoint maybe Joe from the Board of Finance for that committee. I'm sorry to tag you with that, but I think it might be helpful, Tim, if you had somebody like Joe on that committee to try to make sure that this project gets underway.
Well, I think I'm not sure that we can replace the position of the chairman of the Board of Finance. I think that's in the charter, is it not?
Board of Education?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Board of Education.
Yeah, that one by state statute has to be
Yeah.
there.
So, but we may be able to add an additional person.
Yeah.
That would be,
That's a good-
that would be good if you could do that. And I think, this is a big project for the town. I don't think everybody has a full grasp of it. And sometimes Sam and the folks at the school department are focused on, and as they should be, at teaching the kids. And we've got to develop the resources to get this thing off the ground and to get it going.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand this is kind of project that's definitely not in their wheelhouse.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
This is the kind of project that's not in their wheelhouse, meaning Sam and Stephanie. So it's, to get input from them is interesting, but not always helpful as far as votes go and that kind of thing.
So I guess my request is that we might stack the committee with some people who have, like Joe, some background in this sort of thing. And maybe that might help us. I think you're right. I
No,
think
we got some good people on there. I mean, Mike and Brian and Bill Meyer. Someone with construction experience, it would be.
What was his name?
Honowitz.
Honowitz.
I can't remember. I don't know why I couldn't remember that last name. Don't ask me to spell it. Yeah, great. I appreciate that input, and we'll definitely take that up next Thursday.
Thank you. Anything else for Tim?
I'm assuming that the former Somersville School could also take on some senior functions that we...
Yeah.
And perhaps we could even, if we bought it, we could use it immediately, just not utilizing the upper floors.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or accommodating, maybe having a room free downstairs for any of the upstairs offices if we do need somebody who has accessibility issues.
Maybe we could have an exercise program for the seniors to climb the stairs.
I think it's a neat idea.
Thank you.
Great.
Anything else for Tim?
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item, I think, is the update from our CFO.
Yeah, so Tim covered pretty much everything. The only thing I have is we've begun the process, the next resolution for the roads plan. Through 2 meetings with the Board of Selectmen, we've gone through the list, made sure that the roads are what we want to do. We've combined years 2 and 3 into one resolution, and added Field Road Park parking lots as well as Summers Elementary School and high school parking lots to the list. So because of those additions, the project has to be formally voted on again by the Board of Selectmen as, the parking lots portion, and it'll have to go to CIP, and then we'll begin generating the resolutions, and then it'll come to Board of Finance, and both bodies will get a resolution to sign again, and this will be for the November 4th ballot date. But we are ahead of schedule. Even I talked to the bond attorney today about it and asked him if when to expect the resolution, and he looked. He said, "You didn't even do it until July of last year. What's the rush?" And I was like, "I was just trying to get stuff done. I hate waiting on things that can just be a word change here or there." So we are still looking at July again. It'll come to the Board of Selectmen right at the beginning of July. The project will actually be next week at their regular meeting, and then they'll draft the resolution. In the meantime, CIP is going to hold a special meeting about the grammar school and about the parking lots, and then we'll be in the resolutions in July. Any questions?
So on the charter change, on B, the first sentence, that's not when we push money to the general fund. That's a special reserve
Special.
for.
Yeah, look at what
That's not our, when we do, we always put money into the general fund, our reserves. But this is a different fund than B.
Yes.
Okay, because we've never approved, like, end of year when you scrape all the money put it back into the general fund. This is a different.
Yeah,
if we
this
were to
is-
set up a unique fund for capital or non-recurring expenditure. That would take a town meeting.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
I wasn't clear.
Thank you.
Next is setting the mill rate for fiscal year '26.
You want a motion, Mike?
Yeah, have a motion for the $41,816,120.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the fiscal year 2025-26 annual budget of $41,816,120 and to adopt a new mill rate of 30.21.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Next item is the approval of the suspension list.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
further discussion? Anybody? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item is probably for you to enlighten us, if any, Brian, on the annual audit.
Yep, so assuming that the Board of Finance approves the engagement letter and the appointment of Mahoney Sable as our auditors, they will be on site next week for preliminary work. They just sent us the selections today, actually. We're going to have those ready by the end of the week. And they'll be out next week, one day at the town, one day at the Board of Ed, and get a lot of the groundwork, payroll, taxes, and all that out of the way before they come back in October for the labor-intensive work. The scope and objectives within the engagement letter are the same as always. I'd say really the only change is, and it's a shame these pages aren't numbered, but one of the next to the last pages has the fee structure on it.
What's the inflationary amount this year?
It is going up $6,000 over last year's total. However, if we don't need a federal single audit, that $5,500 would be removed since we're not spending a ton of ARPA dollars because they've already been expensed in previous years. I think we might be able to avoid the federal single audit. So you could, that would be your $5,500 swing. We did budget for $53,000 for the audit though, so either way we'll be fine. We're not going to be wild out of budget. The Board of Education pays their $5,500 portion, so either way we'll be good.
700,000 is the number.
700,000 is the number.
So if the federal grants are below 700,000, we don't need a federal
We
one.
don't need it?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion,
The auditor engagement letter.
second.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? None. Motion carries. Discussion and action on the recommendation to revise the dollar amount to require a town meeting for special appropriation.
Yeah, so this started in charter revision and was brought to our attention for other things that may need to be updated in the charter. Tim and I looked into it. The law that the statute that we follow was adopted or was last updated by the state of Connecticut in 1990. At that time, it talks about any town that has a $20 million or more grand list, their appropriation limit would be $20,000, and anyone who has a $10 million would be $10,000. I don't know if you guys have driven down Hall Hill Road lately, but that's our $20 million highway. We're almost at $1 billion on our grant list, so the numbers that the state is using as a basis are way outdated. $20,000, you can't even hire a part-time employee for $20,000. So we got to discussing it. We originally started talking about just setting a dollar amount and what that dollar amount would look like. The problem is in 10, 20 years, we'd probably be doing this exercise again. So we came up with 0.2% of the most recently adopted budget. This allows that appropriation number to grow slightly every year with the budget, keeping it controlled, but not going out of line anywhere. So the current budget, or the one that was just adopted, of $41,800,000, we would be about 82,000 would be our threshold currently. As that budget grows year over year, that little number creeps up, but it keeps you from having to come back in 5 years and adjust it again and so forth. So the red line that is in here are the changes that are being requested.
By you?
Yes.
Mike?
So we would submit this to Charter Revision. They meet next Wednesday. And then they would, when they present to the Board of Selectmen, they would have the final version. But this is what would be submitted to them. Mike did a great job on this. We even found at one point some of the wording was in reverse order, and it had recommendations of the Board of, our approval of the Board of Selectmen for making appropriations. As like, it's the Board of Finance's job, not the Board of Selectmen's job. So we had to reverse some wording within the what's actually approved currently.
The amazing thing is, we're a charter town. We don't have to follow the state statutes. We can set our own limits. And why, as CFO, did I never bring this to you in the 10 years I was doing it? I have no idea.
She had other stuff.
Flew under the radar.
Well, I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's been frustrating to think that such a low dollar threshold was required to be counted.
And 2%, oh, excuse me,
Point.
allows it to grow.
Right. It allows it to grow. It doesn't cap it. Yep.
I think it makes perfect sense.
The only, and maybe it's not a problem, but the nice thing about having I agree the number should be higher. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with $100,000 number.
Yep.
But is it better to have a fixed number so everybody remembers where it is instead of having to sit down and compute it every time?
I think that's why you
Unless-
pay me the big bucks, Mike, is to make that computation
If
for
you
you.
want to make that,
We went back and forth.
We did go back and
I
forth.
couldn't go either way. I said, yeah, I'll go with whatever the board.
it's not a really big deal one way or the other.
It just gets stale, it could fall off the radar.
Yep.
Whereas if you have it a very modest percent, like 0.2, it continually, inherently adjusts with the time.
Grows from time.
You only have to compute it once a year.
Yeah, right.
You can announce once a year.
You're testing my math
Yeah,
ability.
I'm sure against that, Brian is able.
Brian's really capable.
I have a spreadsheet that will do it for
That's
me.
good.
Is the town people going to know or care? Or are they going to be like, what's the number? They're going to have to.
I mean, it'll be very easy to post if we wanted to annually.
When the budget is approved.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be a footnote in the budget to say, that based on, this proposed budget, this is what the annual appropriation limit would be and so forth. That could be worked right into the annual budget book that we do every year.
We're not voting
Can
on
we
anything, are
report to,
You have to vote to, you would have to make a motion to accept this to present to Charter Revision.
Probably
Can
should
we,
have done that before discussing it, so I'll get it on the table. I'd like to make a motion.
well, before you do that, can we report to the Chief Financial Officer that it's the sense of the Board of Finance that we approved the presentation of the draft?
Yep.
You endorse that, right?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. you have the sense of the Board of Finance.
So I'll say Bruce and Joe for the motion in the second.
What's that?
You have to make it a motion in a
Bruce
second.
made a motion.
Well,
I'll second.
So that's your consensus vote. Because otherwise, because you're in charge of this one, so without your actual vote, we can't move forward.
all right, we'll make a vote then.
I'd like to make a motion to.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor? Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
So it's official.
Good.
The next item is other business, which I,
What about the budget projections?
Oh, year-end projections?
Item 9.
item 9,
'Cause I do
fiscal
have-
25
I do have a-
budget status and year-end projections. Joseph, did you have some comment about that?
Have you looked at the Board of Eds?
I have looked at the Board of Eds, and I talked to Stephanie today. They haven't hardline finalized the number, but they're in that $75,000 to $100,000 range that they're looking to return.
As the CFO, and you're in the 10th of 12 months, they have expensed on the payroll side 13 million, and they have encumbered another 4.5, but haven't expensed it. So explain to me how in 2 months they're going to dump $4.5 million on salary.
So they have their last payroll in June. So it'll be somewhere, I think it's probably June 18th will be theirs, or it might be the 20th.
So it's in arrears?
Yeah, so
Way in arrears?
they have like a $2 million payroll that they do on that one that
Oh, to get
they
it
actually
into
pay for
something.
July and August.
Okay.
Because the new school year doesn't actually start until the first payroll.
So they get paid through the summer.
Yep.
They dump.
So half of that will be
They
on
have
this
the
one payroll.
Either get the whole year.
Yep, or they can
just
get the
during
balloon
school year.
payment. Either way, they,
A lot of people who like the budget
Okay,
of the full
that
year.
makes total sense. My son actually in Boston has that same, and the same would happen for the benefits, insurance, they probably.
benefits, they probably just, based on this, they probably hadn't paid the May and June bills. My
Okay.
guess is they would
Okay.
probably eat up most of that with.
That makes perfect sense. Okay.
Anything further on that item?
So you said 75?
They told me between 75 and 100 is what they're shooting for. They're basically the only thing that they are ordering at this point are essentials, so they're not spending down. And then that way, whatever they can return, they will. It looks like on the town side, we're about, the 300,000 number is a little liberal, I think, but it started higher and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. But the town side will be between 200,000 and 300,000, is my guess. Revenues are pretty steady, so of the 420,000, I think, that we appropriated to fund balance, we'll probably end up using about 150,000 of it and return about 200,000 total when it's all said and done.
Have there been any changes in funding from the state that you're aware of?
The only thing I have heard of is that they did agree to level fund the ECS money. It will not increase, but it's not going to decrease either, which is great. We were originally thinking there was going to be almost $100,000 hit there. And the pilot payment actually was voted to go up, but I forget how much. It was minuscule, less than 20,000. But those are the only two that I've heard so far.
But it's not over.
But it's not over.
Because they have 300 million they need to spread around.
Yep.
They put 300 towards Medicaid and another 300 for these issues and special ed.
Yep. I know I feel like the plan for the statewide preschool system that they were planning, I feel like that has died.
Yeah.
And it looks like the funding is going to shift more towards special education than preschool. But yeah, there's still a few weeks left for them to make those decisions.
Anything else, Joe? Other business, minutes from April 22nd.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd.
Second. Any further discussion on the minutes?
You made enough motions, I had to go in.
Seriously. Joe's got the next one.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries. Joe?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
Second.
you.